Hi everyone, and welcome to tonight's Young Scholars webinar, How to Start a Club in Middle School. My name is Adelise Ramirez, and I'll be your host today. I'm so excited for you to be here with me because starting a club is one of the best ways to turn something you care about into something that brings people together. Tonight, we'll talk about how even a small idea can become something meaningful when you build it with people who care. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So, a little bit about me. I'm an NSHSS ambassador. I'm the outreach coordinator, and I'm passionate about student leadership, creativity, and helping students find a way to use their voice. I'll be guiding you through the first part of the presentation, and then we'll hear from student leaders who have experience starting or leading clubs themselves. And here is what we'll cover today. First, we'll talk about why clubs matter and how they can help students feel more connected and confident. Then we'll go through a simple step-by-step guide for starting a club. After that, we'll review a quick launch checklist that you can use after today. And then we'll hear from our student panelists and we'll end with a Q&A. And so please feel free to add any questions in the chat as we go. Next slide. Oh yeah, you got it. Clubs are more than just an extra activity. They can help students build friendships, practice leadership, and feel more connected at school. A good club gives people a place to belong. It can help students meet others who share the same interest, and whether that's science, art, gardening, class volunteering, books, or anything else. Clubs also help build confidence because you get to practice speaking up, sharing ideas, and trying new things. And finally, clubs are a great way to build leadership skills. Even if you're not the president or founder, you can still help plan activities, solve problems, and encourage others to get involved. Next slide. The first step is to explore what your school already offers. So, before starting something new, it's helpful to ask what clubs already exist? What are students already interested in? And what might be missing? You can ask a teacher, counselor, or the front desk if there's a club list. You can also visit one or two club meetings as a guest and see how they work. The goal is not to duplicate something that already exists, but to find a real gap or need in your school. For example, maybe your school has a general science club, but not an environmental club. Or maybe there's a student council, but not a club focused on community service. Next slide. Once you have an idea, the next step is to make it clear and easy to explain. A strong club idea should be simple, welcoming, and specific enough that people understand what the club is about. You can ask yourself three questions. What interest brings people together? Who would feel welcome in this club? What would the club actually do? One helpful sentence you can use is, for example, our club helps students who love gardening by learning how to grow plants and beautifying the school. Or our club helps students who love chess by practicing together and hosting friendly competitions. Next slide. Next, you want to build a simple starter plan. Most most schools will want to know a few practical details before approving a new club. So you may need to know your club's purpose, who your adult advisor will be, when and where you'll meet, what supplies you might need, and what students will actually be doing during the meetings. You don't need a perfect plan right away. A simple organized plan is enough to show that you thought it through. It's better to start with a few strong meeting ideas than to try to plan everything for the whole year at once. Next. Your first meeting is really important because it sets the tone for the club. Your goal is to make people feel welcome and excited to come back. A simple first meeting could include a welcome, a phone question or icebreaker, a quick explanation of the club's purpose, and then time for members to share ideas. You can also end by telling everyone the next meeting date and how they can stay updated. Try to balance structure with fun. People should understand what the club is about, but they should also be included and comfortable. Next slide. Here's a quick checklist you can use after today. First, find a gap. What does your school need? Second, find an advisor. This could be a trusted teacher, counselor, or staff member. Third, plan the basics. Think about when, where, and how often you'll meet. Fourth, invite members. You can use posters, announcements, friends, classmates, or teacher shoutouts. And fifth, host your first meeting. Make it welcoming, social, and memorable. And remember, your club does not have to be perfect on day one. It just needs to be clear. It just needs a clear purpose, a few committed people, and a welcoming first step. Next slide, please. Now let's hear from the student leaders. Now that we've gone through the basic steps, we're going to hear from student leaders who have actually started or led clubs. The goal of this panel is to connect the step-by-step advice with real experience, what worked, what was challenging, and what they learned along the way. What worked, as you listen, try to think of one idea you could try this week, even if it's small. Next slide, please. Now, I'm excited to introduce our student panelists. First, we have Elijah Kowalski, and NSHSS Ambassador. Elijah is passionate about making a difference and enjoys turning ideas into actions, collaborating with others, and approaching challenges with creativity and humor. Next, we have Jaylene. Jaylene, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay, good. Jaylene Henderson, an NSHSS ambassador and the president and founder of her school gardening club. Jaylene started a club in 8th grade and has helped recruited more than 55 members. Thank you all for being here with us today. Let's start with a quick introduction. Could each of you share your name, your club, or leadership experience, and one sentence about why that club or activity mattered to you?
I can go first. So my name is Jalen Henderson. I'm currently a sophomore, and I started the gardening club in my school in my 8th grade year. I would say starting the club, it was actually outside of school, and I just had this interest when I was starting art as well. And when talking to a teacher about her own garden, it's helped me decide that I actually wanted to start a gardening club at my own school.
My name is Elijah Kowalski, and I am in 11th grade as well. I started RPN Advisory because when I was a freshman, I noticed that we did not really learn about all the resources available to us, and it was kind of a boring time. And so I started RPN Advisory, which is Restorative Practices and Advisory, to give freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors the resources they need, whether it's just a study buddy to help them get better grades or whatever they need, and they have that time for it because advisory is meant to be that space that you have. And so I started that school wide for my high school.
Thank you both. Please go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. For this part, I'll ask you a few questions about how you guys got started. The first question is, what gave you the idea for your club or initiative?
The idea came from just having a passion for arts and then also looking into gardening. And then one of my own teachers having her own garden and talking to her about that. So that's kind of just how it started.
For me, the idea sparked looking back on my freshman year at how bad it was to know what we had, whether we had this resource that are available or a different resource available. So I'm like, we need to figure out a way so these students have the resources while also having fun.
Thank you both. The next question is, how did you explain your idea to a teacher, advisor, or school staff member?
It was actually really easy because this is like in the first month of my school year. I went through our student handbook and just talking to my teacher about her own garden and just things she went through because I actually wanted to start my garden at home. I just asked her and I was like, well, because I can't start at home and you have the supplies at school, can I just start a club here? And she would say, yeah. And that's how it started. So,
I had talked to my assistant principal, the 11th grade assistant principal at my school, and also talked to the dean of restorative practices at my school. And I'm like, we have this issue where students aren't getting the information they need. So could I potentially create a program where it's during advisory Tuesdays and Thursdays, where on Tuesdays it's like a study hall, and then Thursdays it's like we can do a fun lesson, or we can have these fun little team building exercises. Like we had this note card tower challenge, and then the staff actually like chose which three were the best, and those three got a party and just had some fun, healthy competition while also making sure the students knew everything available to them.
It sounds like that these clubs that you guys started really made a difference within your schools. I think that is why it's so important for students to speak up and, start a club within their school because it's really beneficial, helps the community. And yeah, so I'm going to ask the next question. What was the very first step you took after having the idea?
I'll say other than actually asking the teacher and having permission from my principal, I was just asking my friends in class because I didn't have a lot of time to like go around the school and our school is very small as well. So just asking my friends and knowing they knew some people who already went to the school before we got there, I was just asking them if they were interested in gardening or if they were just interested in plants and things of that nature. So that's like how I first started.
I started by getting the list of all the advisory teachers we had and getting logistics together, like how many students we would need to help run that. And then also just communicating with my assistant principal and dean of restorative practices to make sure I'm following all the rules, and also making sure it's something that they want to do as well because they are the ones over that program. I am just like helping them out.
And how did you get your first members to join? I think, Jaylene, you kind of answered this question already, but you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah. So, like I said, was just asking my friends, but that was just a general basis to see if we would have enough members to even start the club and before we went ask the principal. But at one point, my teacher slash advisor, she just gave me a notepad and just asked me to go around the school during our lunch period. And I just had people just sign the name, ask for their name and their grade, and if they were interested. And I just told them when our first meeting would be. And that's how we got members. So
For me, I originally reached out to anyone who was already doing restorative practices. Then I reached out to student government, to NSHSS at my school, and then I just opened it to the public where anyone can help out if they wanted to. And it, I told them what it was about, and a lot of them understood, especially the more upperclassmen, just because they did not have those resources made aware to them until in later years or when they figured it out themselves. And so we had a good chunk of people who decided to join based off of just what it was there for.
So, next and last question here in this slide. What would you do differently if you were starting again?
I would say if I knew what I knew now, I would say put more time forward for that actual plan and kind of thinking of more things we can do and what I should tell people and what they should know about the club and about how the hours will go and things of that nature. Because I know I did struggle with that because I did have a very busy schedule because it was my first year and we had things to do, especially after school. So I just say, yeah, planning and scheduling would be it.
Yeah.
If I
Elijah?
if I were starting again, I would make sure we had the program going by the very start of the school year, so it wouldn't be the middle of the school year and kids kind of just now finding out. And I would also try to just start it sooner in general, not like granted, yes, at the beginning of the school year, but if I knew what I know now, I would have tried to start it sophomore year at least. Maybe not freshman because you're new, so you're still learning everything in general. But once you have that general basis knowledge, get it started up.
Thank you both. And I think that it's really helpful for students to hear that clubs don't just magically happen. They start with one idea, one conversation, and one first step. Now, let's talk about what happens after the club starts because keeping a club going is just as important as launching it. So, I'm going to ask the first question here. How do you keep meetings fun and organizing?
I'll be honest, they're not very organized a lot of the time. We're like, it's a really, really small school. So keeping it fun is just always the girls that are there with us because I go to all girls school. So they just always have that energy and then making sure they know what we're doing that day and then being very forward with them. That's what keeps it organized. And then also knowing everybody's, not everyone's, but everyone's schedule to keep it that way. So
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty about saying it's a small school because the truth of the fact is there are a lot of small schools with clubs and it's not easy to keep a club in a small school. You got how many people are interested, how to keep funding going and all that stuff. So I think it's amazing that you managed to keep a club in a small school because I know I tried that and it didn't last a year honestly, but I tried other clubs after that and it was rather successful. Trial and error. So, Elijah, you want to answer the question?
So, how I keep my meetings fun and organized is I use this app called Sports U for all the people actively in the club. So that way they all have a shared calendar, shared announcements. So when someone posts an announcement, everyone is informed, and so no one is left out of the group. But when students are in those advisory classes with everyone else, we try to do something fun. So, like I was saying earlier, we did that note card tower where all you were allowed to use is note cards and nothing else. And it was a little competition between all the advisory classes. Or we did the build a bridge with popsicle sticks, and whoever builds like the best one gets like a party or something. And it was just generally something that we wanted to encourage kids to do, and they're fun activities. So a lot of them participated in the first place, but it's also like we'll do cahoots or bloquettes, where kids always love because it's always a fun competition.
It sounds very inspirational. And I think it's also helping kids like grow more academically and socially. And I think that's one of the benefits that your club has. Now, I'm gonna ask the next question. What challenge surprised you the most?
honestly, I didn't have a lot of challenges, I will say, but it was definitely timing and scheduling. Because where I go to school, we participate in a lot of out of school events. So, and like band was mandatory for me for my first year. So just keeping up with everyone's schedule and my own at the same time was very hard, but I always made sure to go back to my advisor and just ask her what things actually needed to be done at that moment and asking girls around the school if they had the time or if they were busy and things of that nature.
I think it's great that you reached out to an advisor. I think that even if you're running your own club and you're a leader, it's still great to get advice from other people, especially adults. That's what I do still. Elijah.
I would say there were two challenges that kind of surprised me. One, because our school is so big, because we have like I want to say somewhere around 700 students. Uh, it was hard to like figure out the logistics and if we got this up, like how would we divide the students so they would be able to go to all those classrooms and having to manage like each person's schedule individually for that. And also just like with the sheer amount of students, we also have to make sure it's something that all of them will enjoy. So that was a really like it was a very hard challenge, but there was a lot of student engagement with it, so it surprised me as well.
I think I'm really seeing two sides here. The challenges on what's it like starting a club in a small school versus a big school. Two different perspectives, two different sides. I think it's amazing that both of our speakers have those backgrounds. I think this is going to be a really inspirational and informative sessions for the viewers here. So I'm gonna ask the next question. How do you handle low attendance or busy schedules? Because I know that must be hard.
So I will say, in my eighth grade year, I was like really, really busy. And then as like in my ninth grade year and currently in my sophomore year, I got less busy. So just always talking to my advisor, keeping track of my own schedule because I was also doing stuff outside of school. And then also checking in with my vice president as well because she's a senior too. And then for low attendance, I'll say like we have 55 members, but I will say we have like 13 actually active members because, everybody's so busy and we have majority seniors and juniors and I know they're busy with their things that they have going on. So when we need something done, I'll just go up to them, ask them. And if they're busy, I'll just go ask somebody else. And if nobody else can do it, I'll go step up and go water the plants and things of that nature. It's just if nobody else can do it, I'll go do it myself.
Mm, That's a nice perspective to have. As a leader, if no one's willing to work, then I'll do the work. That's a great, humble leadership mindset to have. And, that says a lot. Like you said, 55 members and only 13 were active. That's crazy. And the majority were seniors and juniors. That must have been pretty stressful. And I imagine that you grown a lot from those experiences, emotionally, mentally, because I imagine it must have been a lot of stress for you, managing a big group of people like that. Elijah, can
Exactly.
you answer the question?
So with low attendance, I usually try to make sure there's people available. They're not necessarily going to advisory classrooms every day, but they're available to fill in if like someone is out. Or if they want to be in those classrooms frequently, we usually will pair them up with another person who's already going to a classroom so they still get that experience and they're not left out. But we usually try to have a few people set aside so that way all grounds are covered in busy schedules, sometimes it is very challenging managing the schedule. So that way, every person is going to their advisory room and making sure they're there on time and have the resources they need. And usually, I will ask the assistant principal if she can get the activity ready because she's the one who helps a lot with that program if she can get the activity ready while I set up the calendar in SportsU or make sure that students are there on time and making sure their attendance from school because advisory has attendance is excused so they can go do that. It's a lot, but usually my assistant principal helps me a lot with it.
And how many people are in your club? Can you give me an estimate?
I know we have 6 very frequent members. They usually show up regularly. And then we have, I want to say about 15 to 20 that they're kind of off and on. It, and I know it's a little, but we only have, I mean, just out of like sophomore and freshman, we have I want to say like 14 advisory classes, even though we have a lot of students. They put a lot of students in one advisory class because a lot of kids still don't show up to advisory just because it's so early in the morning. But for those who do, it's a great opportunity. And they're always engaged, always answering questions, and we're checking in, and they know that we're a safe space if they don't have a different safe space in the school.
I think this is a great club that you're doing, and even though you're starting with I think you still got a good amount of numbers, honestly, at least from my club. When I started my first club, it was 6 members, but it definitely grew since then. But I think you got a great number, and I think that you have a lot of great benefits going on in your club too. And I think this is one of those things that it's gonna take a while to catch up on, but when it does, I think you're gonna have so many members because I think what you're doing is really great. Both of you, I think you're both gonna be very successful in these clubs if you keep it up. So I'm gonna ask you guys the next question. How do you give other members a voice?
So I'll be like very honest here. A lot of people don't really have a voice in the club, I will say, because a lot of our events and things that we do is just very time consistent and what my advisor lets me know what we have to do. But when people want to do different events or they want to have like little booths when we have things at the school going on, I always go make sure to like have like I have a notebook specifically for my club. So I'll just ask them, hey, is there something you would like to do for this pep rally? Or is there anything that you think we should continue to do more? Just even if it's like watering the plants or having a list of people to check up on them. So that's really it. And then also they have classes as well with that teacher. So I always let them know if you can't come talk to me or if you can't come talk to the vice president, then you can always just go up to that teacher, let her know, and more than likely, by the end of the day, I'll know as well. And then we can see what we can do depending on what you're asking for.
So it sounds like there is support, but the majority is basically run by like you said the counselor,
No, it's one of our teachers actually.
the teacher. Yeah. But students um still get the support that they need. I think that's really great. Elijah?
So for giving other members a voice, I always tell them it's hard to work something out like that a lot of the times because just with the way the club is itself, it's a school-wide thing. So I always tell them, write your idea down on a paper and then work out the logistics. Like if we make this change or we add this, we need to know how much it will affect the school. Do you think the students will like it? And then if we do, how would you want this to run? And if they can get those, and I take it to the assistant principal and dean of restorative practices because they're the ones over that, and then they say yes or no, or if we can change this part to better fit what this is about, then we can do it. And they supply all the stuff we need, whether it's like art supplies or papers we need printed out, or like the popsicle sticks, note cards. They supply all that for us.
Wow, you have a nice clean system all set up just for that. That's really great. Now, I'm going to ask the last question here on this slide. What leadership skills did your club help you build?
I've actually never thought of that, but I will say just not being authoritative, but being authoritative because I was in eighth grade and because a lot of our members was older than me and they're just seniors. So just having, and then also having backup from my teacher because I just had to realize like if I actually want this and I actually want our gardens to thrive, then I need to actually tell them and let them know like I am the president. If you need something, you can come to me even if I am busy, or you could always go to my vice president and just speaking as well and things of that nature.
Elijah?
So it helped build understanding of how like to lead projects because even though it seems really easy just saying out loud like yeah I want to start a club, it really helps to show the logistics of like everything you have to take into account to start one, as well as making sure you always have a support system in place so that way it doesn't fall back all on you. Even as everyone else was saying, they're like, it's good to have the advisor or someone to support you because if you try to do it all on your own, you will get overwhelmed. And it's good to have that in place.
Yeah. I think that being a leader is one really special experience to like gain like what's it like to be more independent, I guess, for a high school student? Because, we're still growing up, we're still living with our parents and stuff like that, and we're getting ready to move on, maybe live in a college dorm or something like that, or move on to college, have our own car, have our own house, get in a relationship and stuff like that. And I think, like, being a leader helps you to communicate more clear. It puts you in a position where you are independent and you are making decisions for everyone else. And I think that's a great skill that you can take one day if you're going to have a family one day. I think that's an amazing skill to have. Or if you want to be like a teacher or a job like that, I think that being a leader while you're a student is a great way to prepare you for all those things in your future. And it's very valuable, very, very valuable. And not a lot of people get the experience to be a leader. And I think if you are a leader, then you should definitely take up that opportunity, 100% soak up all that you can get, all the knowledge. Try to learn as much as you can because that experience is not going to last forever. And, if you try to learn as much as you can in that experience, then I think you will thrive really amazingly in the future, and it's going to help you in the long run. Like you feel like I don't know how to do this, but I'm remembering when I was a leader during this time, this is what I did, this is how I felt, this is how I handled the situation. You can apply that to real world experiences down the line in the future. And yeah. So we'll go ahead and move on to this slide now.
It's also about planting seeds. I was like, granted, I know one of us was talking about doing a gardening club, but it's more than just a gardening club. It's about planting seeds for students so they can grow in a path that they're comfortable with. Not just, hey, I'm just here for this club, but this club is for people to feel comfortable in a space that they want to be in and becoming those student leaders as well.
Yes, that is very true. It helps students grow because, we're all, underaged. We're still learning who our adult selves are going to be. What do we want to be when we grow up? And, those small club experience, gardening club, a leadership club, volunteering club, I don't know, coloring club. Oh, I got into coloring club. Now I want to be an artist, or I got into Lego club and now I want to be a builder or something like that. Like, even the smallest of clubs can help to inspire students to want to do something great with their lives, can like give them more clarity on the things they want to do. And in my opinion, it does help to prevent senioritis a little bit when you're a senior. I know it helped me a lot with what I wanted to do because when I was in middle school, I got into a graphic designing class, not a club, a class, but that class changed my life forever. And now, since I was 12 years old, 11 years old, I've been doing graphic design and I'm 18 years old now and I'm passionate about it. And that is something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life because I'm passionate about it. See, that small experience I had when I was a kid, it's now motivates me to what I want to do with my adult life. So I think clubs are crucial nowadays in a student's life because, classes are great, but I think clubs really help to build a student's socially and get them more experiences because sometimes as students we forget that we need to be social because we're so busy in academics and stuff like that, and we forget that we should be making more friends or something like that, hanging out with our peers more socially, having fun, but sometimes we're so stuck in our studies. And I think clubs is a great opportunity to really like expand socially as well. So that's my part. Jaylene, do you want to say anything?
Not a lot actually. I will just say being part of the club, like they said, it is building that experience. And then also if you just want something to do, even if you're not so interested and you think you might be, starting a club or even just joining a club would definitely help and just grow what your interest might be if you're unsure.
Thank you, panelists. That was all great advice. I especially like the reminder that leadership is not about doing everything yourself. It's about helping other people and getting involved too. And we're gonna move on to the Q&A now. Mm. So I'll start with one for the panelists. So, what's one club idea you think that would work really well for middle school students?
I will say an art club. I know many middle schools have one, but if they don't, an art club or like a gardening club, because that is something you can do in middle school, because it's not just a high schooler thing. I think something small and simple, even a book club as well, will just be a good start to knowing what you might need to do when you get to high school.
I think art clubs are really popular nowadays. Elijah?
I was gonna say home economics club. Now I know it is probably a class for some schools, but the reason I say it's such a good resource is because you can learn such valuable things. And as a club, it might be a little more fun because you're not as restricted as a class with a curriculum. But I think it's just a good resource for people to learn how to do stuff, and it's from an early age on, so it's skills you can use probably for the rest of your life, and it's really helpful.
I think the more resources we have within our schools, the better. Even if one school is already equipped with resources, I think the more resources can never hurt anyone. I think it only improve something great into something even greater. Especially within a small school, the more resources, the better. Now I'm gonna ask another question. What would you say to a student who wants to start a club but feels nervous asking a teacher for help?
I'll say just do it because the worst thing they can say is no. That's it. Just asking will definitely help you get over that fear. Or even if you just having a conversation with one of your teachers and you think they maybe would be interested, then just ask them. And if they're not interested or if they're already busy with another club, then more than likely they will also talk to another teacher and they will refer you to that teacher. Or they'll just tell you you can just go to the office and maybe somebody there will actually want to be an advisor for your club.
Elijah?
I would say reach out to your safe space. You don't have to ask someone at school first. You can ask a friend or someone that's just close to you in general, and they can reach out for you if they want, if they support your idea. I was like, with my friends, if there's ever a conflict, sometimes they don't like talking to people, so they'll come talk to me, and then I get them the help they need. And it's kind of that same thing where if you don't feel comfortable talking to that adult, go talk to your friends. Some of your friends are really good advocates sometimes, even if it seems like they're not at times.
I'm a very nervous speaker when it comes to adults myself. I always consult a counselor or advisor or someone close to me before talking because sometimes I can just like motor mouth when I'm nervous. So what I do to prepare is I imagine myself. I'm in that room with that person and what am I going to say? How am I going to act? I don't want to look like I'm nervous. I want to look like I know what I'm talking about and I want to come across clearly and present this idea in a way that's going to grab this person's attention and hopefully get me a yes. And I imagine myself talking. And once I do that, I write down what I think I'm going to say and what would sound good and what would capture this person's attention and to listen to me and stuff like that. Why will this club be good for the school, the students? Why would this be like, how would this be like I don't know how to say it. Not so hard for the school to set up, I guess is the word. Like how is it easier on the school side? Like how is it beneficial for the school and how is it beneficial for the students? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like the pros and the cons, but mostly the pros. And then I write something down over and over again, like 3 times until I have a little bit of it in my head. So I have like a bulletin of topics to cover in my head and I'll bring a little bit of notes. And when I get nervous, I look at those notes and I remember, okay, I have to say this, I have to say that, I have to say this. And I'll like a little check mark. Okay, I said that. 'Cause sometimes when I'm nervous, I forget to say all the important details and I say everything except for the important details. So I think a great idea before you present a club idea to someone is to write it down, take a little notepad with you with all the information you need. That's my piece of advice. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question. What is one mistake new club leaders should try to avoid?
I will say not doing research, definitely. Because I know at my school we have a handbook and we have like a list of things that needs to be approved or a list of things that we will need to know before actually starting a club and things of that nature. So I'll say just do your research. And if you know a person that's an upperclassman, always go ask them, always go talk to them, and just talk to somebody who might be already part of a club because then they can tell you some things that has helped them when making their club or being a part of that club.
That's very true. It's always good to consult people who know and who knows how to run a club, who has run a club before, because they can tell you all the mistakes that you made. And it's like my mama always says, try to learn from other people's mistakes so you don't make the same mistake. And I think that's a great piece of advice. Elijah?
I would say not asking for help because if you try to do everything yourself, you will get overwhelmed. And I know some people are like, hey, I can handle this all, I can do this all. But if you don't have that support system, there's going to be a time where it gets overwhelming for you, and then there's nothing to fall back on.
That's true. That happens a lot, unfortunately. I think it's great, like, whenever a situation happens, before the club starts, before all that stress comes in, your head gets clouded and stuff, think of all the situations that could happen and write a solution down. Prepare yourself for when those emergencies, those circumstances happen before they happen. Get everything jotted down. Create systems in place so whenever you're like, oh my gosh, I'm stressing out and I don't know what to do, those things, those little notes, those little uh helps that you wrote will be your lifesaver. Like, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're gonna do. This is who we talk to. Everything's already in line and everything is go. And we're gonna go ahead and go this way. And, I think it saves a lot of stress when you have everything written down. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Before you leave today, I want everyone to choose one small next step. You don't have to start a full club tomorrow, just pick one action. You could write your club idea in one clear sentence, or you could ask one teacher, counselor, friend, or classmate about your idea this week. A club does not start with a perfect plan, it starts with one small action. Next slide, please. And that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much for all our young scholars, parents, and student panelists for joining us today. Before you leave, please take a moment to fill out the feedback form using the QR code on the screen. Your feedback helps us improve future webinars and choose topics that are helpful and interesting for students and families. Our next webinar is No More Summer Slide. Simple ways to keep your middle schoolers engaged on May 27th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you again for being here. We hope you feel inspired to take your first step towards starting or joining a club. Have a great evening, everybody.